Welcome to the new episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matash, and I have with me Allyn Evans, who works in the Institute of the Monroe Institute,
Yeah.
which is very famous especially among doc students. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I see in the background that's in Virginia. Is that the one in Virginia, right?
Yes, this is
Monroe
called
Institute.
the Nancy Penn Center, and it's named after Bob Monroe's wife.
Okay.
And that's where, if you would come to the Virginia campus, this is one of the venues that people
Oh,
say. Yeah.
I've been wanting to come for years. It's one of the things I want to do because I never saw any ghosts, or I never saw anything, out of the ordinary or anything like that. But I heard of this institute, and Dr. Hawkins mentioned it many times that he went out of the body and saw the box.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you go inside the box and you see what's inside the box, and apparently that's, I don't know. It would be cool, very cool. Is it like a 1 week?
Yeah, so it's a 1 week program, and what you're talking about, we actually do either in our remote viewing program or what's called the discovery program. And that's where they will put an item in a box that people don't know, and they use all the remote viewing protocols to
Right.
help it be a difficult task. And in our one of our programs, Discovery, last February, we had all 11 participants hit the target, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
rated by external remote viewing association who did the grading. We sent it off so it would be an outsider, and they gave us 100%.
That's
So
awesome.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that was the first time we'd ever had that happen.
Yeah, well, we'd need some skeptics to go on there, and try one of these things.
Yes.
You wonder why they never try, these things they don't believe, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well,
First
and
of
that's
all, maybe it's too much money for them.
but the beauty of the Monroe Institute and the experience, whether you do it in person, which is going to be a little bit more expensive, or virtually or online, is that you are having your own experience. So it's not me telling you about the experience, it's you having the experience. And that's what makes it powerful.
How would you get into this line of work?
How would someone?
Yeah, how did you specifically, how
Okay.
did you discover it?
It's kind of interesting how these stories go, but I was on a mission to I don't know, I was just so driven to figure out my purpose in life. And as I was going through that process, I also realized I wanted to be more intuitive. I wanted to, amp up those psychic powers. So I would read book after book to help me do that. And in those books, I would find mentions, just like you have from Dr. Hawkins' work, find mentions, little drops in a video, hey, the Monroe Institute. And so it stayed on my radar, but it took me about 20 years to get there or get here. What's interesting to me is I didn't come to it for the OB experience. I didn't even really know that was the big deal. It was about becoming more intuitive. That's why I wanted to come, and that has paid off in spades. Yeah,
Yeah, because being more intuitive, like it always seems that the people in high positions and all that stuff, like there's one thing to know all the information you need to know about a decision, but then at the end of the day, you have to make a decision. And sometimes it's even Donald Trump in his book, The Art of the Deal, he talks about a gut feeling, and he would have a gut feeling about this, and then he'd be like, yeah, this looks good on paper, and then and then he didn't feel right, and then a couple months after there'd be a tornado and destroy the building, or severely damage it. So there's or even hiring people, or there's something more than just information, right? So intuition is very important.
Right. Well, so the only dogma that we have, that means the only thing we're asking anybody to follow, is to be more than your physical body. So if you're keeping that in mind, we have our 5 physical senses. I can see you, I can hear you, etc. But when we go beyond and we say we're more than our physical body, then we're tapping into those other ways to perceive. And that's what we teach and help you experience.
And how was your first experience? Was it like, like after 20 years, you said, when you were not like sure, and then you finally, or was it like you were, was it the lack of time, or was it like something different that prevented you from those 20 years?
It was resources, and part of that was my age, that I had responsibilities with children or a child.
Mm,
And then also not really knowing where it was, not necessarily being brave enough to go check it out. And by the time I decided to show up in 2010, I actually coached myself on the way there about how I would not fit. You know, I wouldn't probably talk to people. And I like to talk to people. I'm very personable, but I
mm.
had it in my mind that there would be a whole bunch of weird people there. And I got here, and no, it wasn't a whole bunch of weird people. It was people who were just seeking more and searching for that experience. We all have different motives and reasons for
Mm.
coming, but we are all seeking.
So yeah, so at the end of the day, when you got there, it wasn't a bunch of boo-boos. You actually were able to connect with those people.
Yes, yes, it was. And also I was concerned about what I would have to eat, and all these things. And
Oh,
it was just a normal place,
well, did you think they're gonna go vegetarian or vegan diet? Imagine you come to a place and it's like raw vegan diet. You have to eat
Right.
raw beans, or yeah, I don't know.
Right, raw food. Well, and some people like that, but for me personally, it was 2010, and that was not the type of food I was familiar eating,
Hmm.
and so that would have been a big shock to me if I had to do that for a whole week, and so I didn't have to do that for a
Okay. So the
week.
first program that you went to was like a week. It was Discovery, right? The
No,
Discovery program.
Gateway.
Gateway, right? Okay.
Gateway is the flagship introductory program. It's the one that, I don't know if you've seen the CIA paper that, oh, it's not the CIA, it's the paper that was a colonel wrote that the CIA released.
Mm.
That's about the Gateway process. That's a program that Bob Monroe created, and
Oh,
it teaches the focus levels. So
so why did the CIA was studying this program?
no, so we had, in our past, we've had different members of the military come and take
Mm.
programs because they were using it for different reasons or checking it out. So
Hmm.
one particular gateway, a colonel came, took the program, and wrote a report about it and what he believed was happening in his findings. The CIA classified it, so it was not a public
Oh,
document, and it was released a few years ago.
okay. So what did he discover?
Well, this is just one person's experience, and it's a reporting of the experience. So I don't even think we need to discuss
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But it brought interest to us, and that a lot of people have read about that report, and that's the Gateway. That's that introductory program.
Oh, I see. Because it's possible that some person may take the course and have an out of body experience, but then say, it's all a bunch of, something happening in the brain and whatnot, and we're all inducing stuff in the brain. It's
Yeah,
still
right.
possible, right?
Right. You have skeptics, and we really don't know what's happening. But again, when you come here, you tend to have the experience of something happening. So that helps you process it and slot it and decide what it is.
Hmm. So how was so let's go back to your experience then, in 2010. So you find it's full of just regular people.
Hmm.
Hmm. And is it like really intense, the 1 week? You do a lot of, like, I imagine there's a lot of like headphones, kind of like this big headphones, and you have music and you have frequencies playing, and you're in a room somewhere, and you're relaxed, and probably you're
Yeah.
alone in the room, or they check you. They're probably checking on
There,
you.
right. Well, there's a check unit, and that's actually the place you also sleep. The way our facilities are now, if you come on our campus, and it's a what we call a check unit. That's an acronym that Bob created, and it's a controlled, holistic environmental chamber. And again, he loved acronyms, so that's what we have fun with. But so
Engineer.
you go in this unit, and it's your bed, and it's got walls and a blackout curtain so that you can have a lot of privacy and darkness if you would like it. And you do it in that space, and then we gather again together, to discuss or to introduce it or something. But you do it for Gateway and some of the core programs. You're going to your check unit a lot to experience the sound technology, and it's very purpose driven. So Gateway, for example, is teaching you the different territories of the map of consciousness. And so Focus 10 is one that's the first one you're introduced to. And that is this place where most people find themselves body asleep, mind awake. And it's an excellent training ground, because when you get into these deep meditative states, if you can stay alert and conscious, then you remember the experiences. If you don't stay awake and alert during your experiences, you think you don't have them.
Oh, so it's about staying awake at that point.
Well, I mean, that's one of the focus levels. Yeah.
Okay. And what did you experience?
When I was there, it's interesting how it works. So some people will have just this huge transformational experience that changes them in an instant.
Yeah.
Others it'll be a slower process and be an opening that can sometimes seem not so, like nothing really happened here.
Wait, hold on. So
they're always happening.
Somebody might come back home and they'd be like, "Oh, we don't recognize Michael anymore. He's totally different. He doesn't react to things like he used to." Is that possible? Like people have that kind of experience?
Well, I think it's typically not to that extent, where
Okay.
it tends to be a more slow, it's a slower process of stepping into your authentic self.
Right.
And so it's more about just changing how you're reacting to the environment or situations, and how you're judging, and how you're open to more experiences and people. It tends to take you in that direction. But you can have some pretty powerful meditations where you're experiencing something that is an epiphany or heals an old wound. Maybe there's a relationship that needs to be healed. So that's what I mean by transformational experiences. Like someone who's lost a family member or a child might have some feeling of connection, and that is so comforting and shifts them from grief. That's what I mean by transformation.
So what kind of I'm not sure if you said, what kind of did you have then?
Mine was a little bit slower pace, but I definitely had some openings that I recognized, okay, I'm getting more psychic here. And one was perceiving the energy from a crystal. I'd never had that happen before. Another was in a meditation that we were doing on healing. And I focused on my roommate, who I knew was not comfortable. I didn't know what the condition was. I just knew she was having some pain. And I got a visual of right where that pain was. And so I had some just little bitty openings like that, but it was enough to go, whoa, something's happening here.
Did it impact you creatively as well? Like, so and also how to make decisions, like moving forward from there? I imagine it was quite, even though it was slower pace, you said, but obviously the fact that you're the executive director of the Monroe Institute now signifies to me that it was quite, even though it seemed slow pace, but it was definitely a profound experience.
It was enough but when I walked into the door, I'd never been there before. I was overwhelmed, overcome with this feeling of I am home. And it was so powerful. So that was another part of my experience, just to feel that to the core of my being. And I was not expecting that. Why would that happen when I'm just going to a workshop? Do
you think maybe it was like I don't know if you believe in past life, but if you do, like, was it like a prior agreement kind of thing? Like you
never know, but I definitely believe there's a lot going on that we don't experience with our own eyes, with our physical senses, and then also with our current conscious mind.
So I assume your background was either Protestant Christian or something like that.
So I was raised Episcopalian.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is a form of being Protestant, but
And they don't believe in out-of-body experiences, obviously.
so again, I didn't come at it from the out-of-body experience. I wanted to be more psychic. And I was fortunate the way that I was raised, that there was no teaching about that. I didn't know that it wasn't I didn't see it as something wrong. I just didn't know about it. And so that wasn't a conflict for me.
Oh, okay. So they weren't like preempting and saying anything strange is bad. It wasn't like that.
Right.
It was
I didn't have that background. Others have had that experience and background.
okay.
Yeah.
That's very good. So you had pretty good I would say you had you didn't fight it. You fight your religious background. You had a positive experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But still,
Right.
you wanted more. You wanted obviously the
Right.
intuitive part you wanted to develop.
Right. I had this intense yearning. And I want to go back to one of the earlier questions where you were asking about making decisions and things like that. And actually, one of the things you learn in our Gateway program is a quick decision-making tool, stepping into these different states of awareness. So yes, I do believe that you do learn practical tools to help you in your daily life. And that's one of them. And then also just being able to have more of a perception, like you were talking about, of, wait a minute, this feels a little off. I need more time to think about it. Type, where it's not, you're heightened. Those extra senses are heightened, and you're able to tap into that more readily than maybe you would have been if you hadn't been focused on that kind of self-development.
So the gateway, does it towards the end, do you intentionally also do the outer body, or that's not part of it? That's a different.
It is an exercise within the whole program, but it is not the focus. We do have an OBE spectrum, which is the out-of-body experience spectrum program, where that is the focus. I actually trained that one until I took this job.
Oh, you were training people to do it.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So you went from I don't even know if this is a thing to being a trainer in it.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Was that like a slow process as well?
It tends to be, for me, it wasn't. I did everything very quickly. And right after I attended the Gateway in March, and it was actually 2009, I was invited to join an organizational meeting about creating what they called then the local chapter network. And it was an idea to help form groups in different parts of the world. So when people started coming to the Monroe Institute, they had places to go and meditate with other people. Mm-hmm. Well, I go to that organizational meeting and I come away as the chair of it. I had just attended in March, so for me, it was a very fast stepping in. And then I became an outreach trainer that same year. An outreach trainer is someone who trains basically the first 2 days of Gateway in their own communities. So I did that. And then I was asked to be the co-trainer for the outreach trainers. And so that brought me into being a residential trainer. And that happened the next year. So within 2 years, I was a residential trainer. But that was a bit of a fast track compared to others.
Okay. It's almost like you're meant to do what you're doing.
I would pull through the door every time, every step of the way. Yeah.
Were you in Virginia before, or did you have to move?
I had to move. I grew up in Mississippi. I've lived in a lot of different places: Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, New York.
Man, I love it. I'll tell you a story. One time I was working in my first summer in Wyoming when I was a student, and there was a lot of people from Mississippi, and then this girl came from Mississippi as well. Her name was what was it, Hannah, I believe. And she came and she had this really strong Mississippi accent. And the first night she came, she was like, "I never met a stranger in my life." She said, she's very, very open, very extrovert. And I suppose that's part and parcel of the southern culture. Southern U.S. culture is like very open, very extrovert, very hospitable.
Yeah, Mississippi it has a unique way of being hospitable
Yeah.
and welcoming. Yeah, it's just part of how we are raised if we grow up there.
Mm. And I is Virginia in the South as well?
Yes,
Okay, right. So that's
but
isn't
it's
you're
close,
not out of
really
place.
close to Washington, D.C., though. It's like 2.5 hours south. Well, I'm not even sure quite the direction, but it's about 2.5 hours drive from us.
Hmm.
And so you're close, it's not in the deep South, I guess would be the way to explain that.
Right. Well, Mississippi is.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
But I
So
love Virginia. But Mississippi is home.
yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. So you're there in Virginia, and um you're you must enjoy the job as well. It came naturally to you, the position you're in, right?
Well, because I've been so involved with the organization in different roles throughout the years, it wasn't difficult to step in
Wow.
to the role. And yes, I mean, the work that we do, our mission is to reach 1% of the population in 10 years, which is 80 million people with a direct experience. So our direct
Oh,
experience would be a meditation, a program. And so it's just wonderful when I talk to participants or when we get feedback and we see the impact that this has. It makes it, yes, it makes it a fun place to be because you just know what you're doing is very meaningful.
hmm. I don't know if you know, but how many people have thus far been to the at least one workshop at the Monroe Institute?
It's hard to say that. We were residential for so long. So you could really basically just come to this campus. And that was until 2019,
Hmm.
before COVID. We
Oh,
did have
right.
some online programs, but it was very limited. So we could have about 1,000 people a year come through. So that tells you it wasn't a high volume. And now we have the Expand app, which is our app, which I would love people to go check out. So that's opening up our ability to reach people to have the direct experience. And then we also during COVID transitioned or pivoted to having some virtual programs,
Oh,
and then
wow.
also creating more online programs. And we're still doing that. So we're trying to help more people, no matter where you're located, have the experience. And we do a webinar that's very low price point, only 3 hours, so you can have the experience without it being a huge drain on time and resource. So
Oh, that's awesome.
that's the direction we're going now. And so it's an exciting time for us because we are on a mission. We're serious about this mission. It was created a couple of years ago, but there were not really any steps taken to be serious about it. And so in March, when we met with our board of directors and our in-person meeting, it was my first in-person meeting with the board, because I was named permanent executive director in February. We met with them and we made this serious. We're serious about this. And so when we look at decisions and what we're doing, we run it past that. How will that impact what we're trying to do? And we have a very small staff. I mean, a staff that does a whole lot. So
Like how small we're talking, like one hand or two hands?
well, so two hands. When you're on campus, our on campus staff is about two hands, but with hospitality, it's a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Giving us the food and hospitality experience.
Mm. But so I also imagine the cost factor is a lot less for people if they do the app or if they do the virtual class, right?
Right. So the app is free, but if you do the free version, you limit what you can access.
Mm.
There's a monthly rate of 12 something a month or $70 annually. So it's not that expensive.
Is that worldwide though? Because I'm in UK. I'm in United
Oh
Kingdom.
yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely. And we have one of our meditation and he's also a trainer, is from the UK, and you need to you need to contact him and have an interview.
Okay, okay. Well, is he in Scotland too, or probably England?
He's in
England.
England.
All
Yeah.
right, all right, cool. That's awesome. So it's expanding, and your goal to is that 80 million for US or worldwide?
Worldwide in 10 years. So
Okay.
2032.
And what are you finding the apps? I don't know. You probably have analytics. Like, do most people downloading it from the States, or is it like world, like mostly like international?
So right now it'd be we just launched it in July. So we're just a little over a year old. And so
Mm-hmm.
predominantly US. We're starting or the beginning processes of translations and getting different languages. So we are serious about it. It's just, again, small staff. We have to do things in time in a step. And we've got our app team is very small. We have 3
Right.
people, 2.5 people who are driving this app development and the maintenance and the content development.
Cool. So this some media stuff that you guys do, but not, I imagine it's not much, because like the media, the mainstream media, I would say, is not, I would say it doesn't recognize this. It probably thinks it's weird, right? So you don't probably have that many mainstream interviews, right?
Yeah, well, it's a mixed bag. I mean, over the years we've had some, but just like, for example, the Washington Post wrote an article about a monk who from Canada who attended, and he was so impressed. He bought, at the time it would have been tapes. He bought a whole bunch of tapes and took them back to his monastery because and the quote that he said, that they say he said, was, "You Americans, you do everything so fast, and I've been doing this disciplined sitting for 25 years, and you just have a tape I can listen to and do the
Right.
same thing." But that made a mainstream article. And we, over the years, we've had others, and we're getting, interestingly enough, more interest from mainstream documentaries, people who are wanting to interview us, to have us a part of the consciousness movement description. So we had a film crew, a 2-man film crew come in last week, and they're doing a larger consciousness awareness documentary. And so they wanted us to be included in it.
Mm, that's awesome. I think what would be also interesting is that have about 6 or to 12 participants come in and have like have a documentary style, and have some skeptics among them as well.
Right. We did that with A&E. Are you familiar
Mm,
with A&E, that network? We did one of our programs called Lifeline, and that happened probably 5 years ago. And that was really interesting because we had people who had experiences, and then we were able to, their crew were able to go look it up and confirm that the information that some of our participants were receiving, there was evidence to support it.
oh wow. And you guys are open obviously to do more, because this would help reach more people.
Right. And that's part of that mission,
Yeah.
to get it out there, to reach that 1%. Yeah.
So if ever, let's say in the future, I wanted to do something like this, would be able to make a deal to make this happen.
Yeah. And actually, what I'd say, let's do it, and let's do a direct experience. So
Yeah.
let me do what I do when I virtual train and stream a meditation, like set it up, we do it.
Did you find any difference now between virtual and in person? Because I think, because for me, I don't know why, maybe I'm biased, but for some reason in my head is like in person would be the most, because in person would probably be the most powerful, because the whole setup there is like there's probably a field around it, because there's been so many times, so it's probably easier to do in that room where like there's been 1,000 people before that have done the same thing. So it's probably, what I mean, like a place, a room can get you trained in a certain thing, in a good
Right.
way or a bad way.
Right. I believe that I would have to say the residential experience is the pinnacle. That's because you're going to be with people, looking them in the eyes, touching, talking at dinner, so it's a more powerful experience. Additionally, based on what you said,
Mhm.
the Zoom experience though is powerful. I've trained lots of Zooms, and it's amazing what happens. And we didn't really know, when we first decided to do this, we were like, not sure if this is how this is going to translate. And Luigi, who's in the UK, Luigi Scambriella, and I taught OB Spectrum several times together virtually, and people were having the same amount of success as they do in the in-person programs.
Mm.
So it is effective, and if it's the only way you can do it, it's a very valuable, and I know you will enjoy it, experience.
And the cost is probably at least half less.
Cheaper, yeah. It's
Like
more
is
than that. It's more than
more
half.
more than half less. Okay, so then it would be accessible to a lot wider range of people. And did you
Right.
find that
And it's
the
real time.
numbers spiked?
Well, and I want to say this, it's in real time.
Mm.
So you're actually with the trainers. It's
Yeah.
not like the online courses are self-directed. This is, we jump on a Zoom call. We mirror what we do here, and then we send you off to do the meditation. Then we come back, so it's the program. It's just presented in a different way. Another positive with Zoom is when you have everybody on your screen, you're all looking at each other. When you're in person, people are sitting behind you, or so you're not, there's some of that doesn't get translated that does on Zoom, that you actually get to be involved and directly involved with another person. When you're in person, sometimes you tend to like hang out more with that person or this group, so you miss the opportunity to get to know all the people and have interactions with all the people. So that would be a plus.
Oh, that's a good argument if I've ever heard one for a Zoom. That's very good. Because I did one time, I did 1 year of university, and it was very interesting to do a play based just window small, because when there's a lot of people, there's only small windows. So and using that to your benefit, and like some people, if they're not in the play, they shut it off the video, and then there's only two, and then they're talking, and then when they end that scene, then they close the window, and then another two appear, and then there's a different scene. So it's very interesting what you can do with Zoom.
Yeah, well, and this also, we limit it to 20 people. So you will more than likely have 15 to 20 people in the program. Here we limit based on venue availability, and we have 24 in one venue and 19 in the other venue. So we keep the number small, which we think enhances the experience.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So is it one venue is here in Virginia, and there's another one?
Both. We have two here in Virginia. They're a mile apart. One of them is Bob Monroe's old house that's been converted.
Oh.
And we do offer programs in Arizona and internationally, but it's trainers who are using other facilities. So it's not our facilities, but we can do a similar setup where you have, you have a space to meditate. We use different type of equipment, but it feels exactly the same, except you're not here in a check unit.
All right. So the home base obviously is Virginia, because that's where Bob Monroe was from.
Right. This is where it happened.
Let's quickly touch upon Bob Monroe, the genius behind all of this, because without him, we probably wouldn't be talking, and I probably wouldn't know about the out of body experiences and stuff like that. So how did Bob stumble upon this for people that don't know?
Yeah, it's interesting because he was in the radio business. So he had worked a lot with sound in the sound effects and that. And then as he was transitioning out of radio, and it was a time when things were changing in the world and TV was coming in. And so he was like, okay, what do I want to do now? And he was thinking about the TV business, and he did get into the cable business and this is that actually activity helped fund what we have here. But he bought a lot of the franchises of cable companies in the Virginia area.
Oh, wow.
But he decided that he was much more interested in if people could learn why they sleep. going from radio to TV, he felt like, well, that's just the same. That's the same thing, but just pictures are added. So it didn't excite him. So this idea excited him. He already had a lab. He already had some staff. So they started testing this idea. Can people learn while they sleep? So we'll just pick Spanish. Can people learn Spanish while they sleep? Well, when they brought in the participants, they ran into a challenge they didn't expect. And that is that they had trouble falling asleep. So then Bob was like, okay, well, let's play with sound and see if we can help induce sleep. And then that took him into a whole different direction because crazy things started happening.
Oh.
Yeah, and by the 1970s, he had two young scientists working with him. Tom Campbell, who's a lecturer, well-known author of The Theory of My Big Toe, and then Dennis Minorich. And Dennis actually read an article about the binaural beat, binaural beat effect. And this was in 1973, I think I'm remembering correctly. And it was a German scientist in the 1800s, like 1839, who discovered this binaural beat effect. Well, it was enough information for Dennis to go, wait a minute, we should put that with the sound. And that's when everything changed.
How about his I know in personal life without any use of any sound, because I think years ago I read most of his book, The Journey Inside Our Body, which is the most famous book, right? And I believe he says in the book that he just starts feeling vibration when he was sleeping. Was he using already the tapes then, or was it?
So we don't really know. Some people hypothesize that maybe, even though it was before the binaural beat thing was included, that listening to all these things helped lead him to that space. But we don't really know.
Okay.
And some people do have this experience, the OB experience, spontaneously. And so he could have been one of those people, and then just happened to be working in this other area, which could put the two so beautifully together.
That's interesting, because I always thought that he had spontaneously, but now I'm not sure, because
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not either.
But then obviously when he had the experience, he was like, man, I'm already working on some stuff. How can I induce this?
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Well, so yeah, again, with that introduction of the binaural beat effect, that was helping other people.
Was he doing like subliminal stuff as well, or was he doing like frequency? Okay, he was doing mostly frequency
So
stuff.
the binaural beat effect in the sound technology is what we call the frequency. So that is one frequency playing in one ear, another frequency playing in the other ear. The brain, and I'm going to be real simplistic here, let's just say the brain is another ear, it hears the difference, and then it tries to balance it. And that's when we get it, that's what it'll take us or help lead us to that place, which could be a 4 hertz or 4 cycles per second space that the brain can go, or to an alpha or to a beta or to a theta. And it's not what we do with sound technology. It's not so simple. So when we do exercises with you, it's not just a beta signal. It's not just a delta signal. There's a complexity involved based on the purpose. Just like with the focus levels, focus 10, I don't know the recipe. I'm not a sound engineer, but I do know, my guess is there's a lot of delta in there because that's body asleep. There's got to be some beta in there because body awake. So again, it's very complex. And over 40 years of looking at that and working with it.
Going back to the classes, is there any, you said it might help with decisions as well. So is that the basic gateway program that's gonna already, like, some people already have like this stronger intuition, or was that your experience already? The first gateway experience was already strong intuition?
Right. So that's a difficult thing to say how it would be for any individual. Because once you tap in or discover that you can receive information in other ways besides your physical senses, then it's a process of using it, trusting it, testing it, making sure you keep using it. So it's a little bit more complex than just saying I went to a program and now I can, do this. But it's giving you the tools so that you can do it. And more than likely, anyone that comes to a gateway program or progresses, you tend to lock in on 2 or 3 things that are important to you. And that's what you'll work on. Like somebody wants to be a remote viewer, that's a little bit different thing than what I wanted to do. Now you could say a remote viewer is being psychic, but I'm not accessing the information in the way that a remote viewer would do. I don't really have the interest in doing that because that's a skill. That's something that I would have to be practicing and develop.
And that's something you guys teach as well, you're saying. Oh, that is very interesting. Wow. Because I've had a remote viewer on the podcast one time, and he had some very interesting theories indeed.
Yeah.
So wow. So it's for imagine for a lot of people it's mind blowing when they get to the and they take the gateway program and I don't know, it just discover something different about themselves.
Well, it's definitely, I see it as the path to self-evolution. And it's just, let's go back to David Hawkins. And
oh yeah, I was going to mention that anyway. Yes.
Yeah. Talk to your audience about the map of consciousness.
Yeah.
From 0 to 1,000, where we're looking at different vibrational levels of people, things, places, whatever it is, events, songs. So we can use these tools to help ourselves keep hanging out in those higher vibrational places.
Did you ever have a guest? What do you call them? A client or participant
Okay.
that came in there, and I don't know if you ever read this Road Less Traveled, written by I forget his name now, but he had an experience with people that were possessed. Did you ever have any experience of people that came in that had some kind of people call it detachment, so kind of things that are in their spirit that are not just them, there's something else. Did people ever have okay,
but that's not like a program that we have, that we offer, so it's not something that we're looking at and experiencing. So yeah.
Okay. So going back to David Hawkins, is the map of consciousness. It's basically the basic premises, and that there's a level of integrity, and going higher is obviously something that a lot of people in the spiritual circle are going to aspire to. And so would you say that your program is something that helps people go along and progress in the level of consciousness?
I believe so, because it's opening the heart. It's helping with those things I said earlier, where you tend to look at other people differently in a less judgmental way. You tend to start communicating people with a more open heart. All those things that are putting you in that higher vibrational area. So definitely, I think so. But and you've read this before because you've listened to David Hawkins, or you've heard it before.
Yeah.
Even just feeding birds, letting people go in front of you in traffic. Those are the kind of things that help put you in those higher vibrational states.
Yeah,
too.
It's not some high fancy things you need to do.
Right,
Just turn
right.
He'd often mention also turning the beetle over, if it was on his back, over
Right.
to
That
its legs.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. Just make choices that are integritous. So if you have a belief about something, you stick to it. You make those choices, not because somebody's dangling a whole bunch of money at you, or something that is tempting. It's who are you as a person, and as we self-evolve, we tend to stay more in line with that. And then that makes us more congruent as an individual, or authentic in our interactions with people as well.
You know what I found is as I'm on this path that have a lot of work still to do. I keep
We all
finding
do.
areas.
Hey, here's the thing, if you're still living, you got work to do. So, and we all have a shadow side.
Yeah.
And so what we can do is, with the best intention, try not to hurt anyone. If we realize we do, try to do something about it, but we don't, we're not going to be self-aware a lot. But when something does come to our attention, be mindful and look at it and see if there's something that needs to be corrected, addressed, forgiven, loved.
Yeah.
About yourself,
That's what it is, isn't it? Like that it comes to your awareness. So sometimes things happen and you're like, oh, why did I do this? But in a way it's a gift, because this happening is just is you're aware of it now, so you can possibly meditate on it. You can I don't know, if you have a sponsor, talk to your sponsor, or you can do there's a lot of spiritual tools that we have.
Well, and awareness is such a powerful step, and that's what we need. That's the first step. You don't address anything you're not aware of. So don't beat yourself up. Instead, when you become aware, then look at it, heal it, do something about it, and then you'll get another awareness, because that layer has been dealt with. So now it's time for the next thing. And we're always going to be doing this.
I know it's a bit of a rhetorical question, but how did in your personal life, how did being in Monroe Institute, how did this help you in your spiritual progress?
Again, it's self-evolution. And so it's all right. So one of the things that we do here, we use something called the mind mirror, where we can look at how your brain patterns are organizing when you are listening to frequencies. And there's a mind mirror is the name of it. Maxwell Cade started this, and he looked at patterns of healers, of psychics and mediums, and of people who were long-term meditators. And he found that they could maintain these different patterns. And his theory is, if we can maintain those specific patterns for an extended period of time, so say through a meditation, then we are helping ourselves. And that's when we are growing, and I think growing spiritually, because we're stepping into that authentic self who's communicating with the higher self, and we open that channel. Yeah.
Awesome. So you basically you find did you ever have an experience where you had participants in and you had like they had that kind of did they ever like change religions or something like or leave their religion because
I will say this. What we say after you take a program is wait a certain amount of time before you make any major life changing decisions. We do tell you that.
Okay, that's how powerful it is.
Well, it can be. It's different for everyone, and we've had people come who say, "I don't get it. I don't understand." So it's different for everyone. And people can come who are very experienced meditators, and people who can come who say, "I can't meditate at all," and they find help, or they find experience. Basically, not help, but experience.
So it's possible that somebody that meditates a lot comes and they don't get much out of it.
Well, I would say it's a different way to receive it. So I think someone who meditates a whole lot, I would say that happens less frequently, if it happens at all, that they don't get much out of it. It's an enhancement of their meditation practice. Someone who's never been able to meditate, the sound technology can help them do that in a way that they've never experienced before, and help them stay there. If you are a disciplined meditator, so you've been sitting there for 25 years in the position, they've mapped the brain, and you can hold this whole brain state, or the ones that were looked at by the Menninger Foundation. You can hold this whole brain state for 10 minutes or less. Well, with the frequencies, it can go on as long as the frequencies are being used. So see how
Mm.
powerful that is. You're in that state that opens you up to creativity, opens you up to healing, opens you up to problem solving, opens you up to turning more toward the heart. We do things about forgiveness, forgiving yourself, forgiving others. We have a course that I train, energy medicine, that's about healing.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So so when you teach this, then people do people have like spontaneous healings during in a class?
We have had some people report some spontaneous healings. We have, but that's not a
aim.
guarantee. It's
Right.
not why we're having you come to the program, but yes.
Mhm. Are you, is it like teaching people how to do it, or is it just
Yeah.
basically being aware? Oh, is it you
It's
teaching?
both. Yeah,
Okay.
it's primarily teaching how to work with energy, and we bring a biofield imaging software that you could, for any of those people who are interested, you can Google Thornton Streeter biofield imaging, and you can find the images and what they say about it. But we pull that out. We have it going at least once a day, where we're doing videos and photographs of your subtle body energy field while you're doing energy work. So
Wow, that's
it's valuable.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing to me.
A
How
lot
can
of
you?
people when they come to energy medicine, I watch this all the time. There's a really quick transition from I believe this is possible to I know it's possible.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love watching it, because people step into that. Okay, I see it with my own eyes, and then I start perceiving it. For some of us, it's kinesthetic. We can actually perceive that energy flowing.
Hmm.
So
And that's the best, like to not to convert, because they do it by themselves, but to see a kind of skeptic and oh, I don't really believe in it, somebody paid for me to do this program, so I'm here, and then for them to turn away and have a totally different outlook on life.
yeah, I'll tell you a good book if your listeners are interested. Suddenly Psychic by Maureen Caudill. And she talks about, she was a scientist. She showed up here, didn't even know what she was doing. I think she came with a friend or something.
Okay.
And it rocked her world because of the experience. She had to really question what's happening here. So that's, for skeptics, that's a really good book to look at. And it also has this great description of focus levels in the back.
Oh,
Breaking it out. Yeah.
that's something you teach at the Monroe Institute. And as part of your spiritual journey, you discovered also Dr. Hawkins at some point.
I did.
And how did you discover it? I'm just curious. I always ask people.
When I first picked it up, it was just during that curiosity time when I was finding books and reading, and I read Power versus Force. I liked it. It didn't change my world, but I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then fast forward to, let me think when this would have been, like 2013, 14. I'd gone through a divorce, and I was asked to come and train a small group of people with the Monroe program. And the gentleman who hosted it gave me a book, and they actually were a group that would go to Sedona and be taught with David Hawkins. And the reason they reached out to me was because of what because of how David Hawkins spoke at the Monroe Institute. So he gives me this book, and it's called Letting Go. I don't know if you've read it, but
yeah,
it was written, and then it didn't get finished. He died. And then his partner, and I can't remember her name right now, Susan finished it, edited it. So it's a wonderful book because it's not as intellectual, and not to say Susan's not, I'm just saying it's more of a practical layman term kind of reading. It's a fast reading, and with Doc's books, kind of, you don't speed read those. But it was so, I call it the book of the decade for me, and I would sleep with it. That's how helpful it was for me. So that's when I really said, okay, this guy, he's good.
Yeah, it's a really amazing technique, and a lot faster than talking therapy and just sit down with the emotions. Yeah. Cool. Last words, because we're coming up to
Oh,
the end. So
oh, okay.
if anybody's interested, um, what would you say? Or if anybody's curious about this, the Monroe Institute and what the programs you offer.
So go to monroeinstitute.org would be the programs. Download the app. It's in Google Play or it's in the Apple that you can just search. I would say Monroe Institute, but you can also search expand and it would be, it'd be there, and download it. And I would encourage you to subscribe to it because that gets you in to about 80 to 85 opportunities to have meditations, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, 40. We have a timer feature we're about to roll out that's much more robust, that has a way for you to mix frequencies with different background noises and sounds like surf or nature or rain. And so you can do extended meditations with the frequencies without someone talking. We have a lot of guided ones because a lot of times when people first start, it's very helpful to be guided and to be given a reason to be listening and being active in the meditation.
Talking about people speaking, it's Robert Monroe's voice was amazing, and I think even Dr. Hawkins commented on his his amazing voice, because he must have heard
The
it.
radio voice.
Yeah, because he did in the 70s he did the Monroe Institute, I think. So he must have been all Robert Monroe, his voice,
So the Gateway program is his voice.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a voice on the Expand app. I've written and voiced several, and then I do some of the program exercises now here on campus, the newer ones. So you'll recognize one voice when you listen.
That's Allyn Evans.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast. I enjoyed it very much, and it's I really appreciated you being on.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. I always love to talk about Monroe.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching this show.